Chronicles of the Starborn wanderers who traveled beyond the edge of time. Humanity always believed that time was a straight river, flowing from past to present, pulling everything into the future. But they were wrong. Time was not a river. It was an ocean, and oceans have hidden depths, unseen currents, and dark trenches where reality itself curls like smoke. When the last dawn arrived, the morning when the sun rose brighter than ever before, people felt something change. The sky shimmered with threads of silver light. Clocks stopped. Shadows moved a moment before their owners did. The world felt as if it had slipped slightly out of place. And in that strange moment, 12 children were born across the planet, each carrying a spark of something ancient and powerful within them. They were called the Starborn, though no one knew why. Not even their parents understood why their newborns had star-like markings on their skin that glowed faintly whenever they cried. These children would one day become the wanderers, those who would travel beyond the edge of time itself. But their story did not begin with heroism. It began with fear, confusion, and a secret hidden deep beneath the crust of the earth. The first Starborn to feel the calling was Lyra, a quiet girl with silver eyes who lived near the northern ridge. She often felt the wind whisper things to her, soft warnings, gentle promises. But on the night she turned 16, she heard something different. She heard her name. Clearly. Strongly. Echoing inside her mind. Lyra, it is time. She stood up from her bed, shaking. The voice wasn't frightening. It felt familiar, as though she had always known it would speak one day. She walked to her window and saw the sky swirling. It was as if the stars were moving in patterns, forming a path, a map, a message. She whispered, "Where do I go?" The stars pulsed in response. Across the world, at that exact moment, the other Starborn felt the same strange pull. Kale, who lived in a desert village, saw the sand rise like glowing dust as the ground hummed beneath his feet. Eris, living in a floating city above the ocean, saw her reflection blink at her from the water's surface. Darren, a boy who spent most of his time fixing old machines, felt every metal object around him vibrate like tuning forks. The calling had begun. Far beneath the earth, deeper than any human had ever dug, existed a secret place known as the Celestial Rift. It was not a cave and not a chamber. It was a wound in reality, a place where time was thin and the past flickered through the air like dust motes. The Starborn were guided there one by one. None of them understood why they had to go. None of them knew what waited for them. But they trusted the whisper inside them, the same whisper that had been watching over them since birth. Lyra arrived first. Her footsteps echoed as she entered the shimmering cavern. The air felt thick, as if made of liquid starlight. In the center of the chamber floated a crystalline sphere that pulsed like a heartbeat. She reached out. The sphere glowed brighter. "I've been waiting for you," said a voice behind her. Lyra turned to see a boy with dark hair and faint blue symbols glowing on his arms. It was Kale. "I followed the light," he said. Lyra nodded. "Me too." Soon, others arrived. Eris, Darren, Myra, Solon, Yora, Tovin, Ryn, Elise, Joran, and Vale. 12 in total. 12 Starborn. They formed a circle around the crystalline sphere. The air hummed. The ground trembled. Finally, the sphere cracked open like an egg of glass, and a wave of ancient energy flew outward, touching them all. That's when the truth revealed itself. The energy condensed in the air to form a tall figure made of shifting stardust. It had no face, no fixed shape, but its presence felt old, older than the earth, older than the first galaxies. "I am the archivist," the being said, its voice echoing like distant thunder. "I serve the universe. I record its cycles. And now, I summon you for the survival of all timelines." The Starborn looked at one another. None of them spoke. The archivist continued, "You are not ordinary humans. Within each of you lies a shard of Chronos light, the energy that shapes time itself. It awakened when the last dawn rose." Lyra stepped forward. "Why us?" "Because time is breaking," the archivist answered. "The strands of fate are unraveling. Something beyond the universe, something older than time, is consuming reality from the edges inward. If it reaches the center, all existence will collapse." Kale clenched his fists. "Then we stop it." The archivist's form flickered. "To stop it, you must travel beyond the edge of time, beyond the final boundary where no human has ever walked. There you will find the timeless void, where past, present, and future collide." Eris shivered. "How do we get there?" The archivist raised an arm. A glowing doorway carved itself into the air, swirling like a hole punched into the cosmos. "This is the Chrono Gate," the archivist said. "Once you pass through, you will no longer be bound by the laws of time." The wanderers looked at each other with a mixture of fear and determination. Tovin whispered, "If we go through, do we ever come back?" The archivist's silence was the only answer. The 12 Starborn stepped toward the Chrono Gate. The portal pulsed with unstable energy, like a heartbeat made of lightning. Lyra inhaled deeply. Kale placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. Eris nodded at them both. Together, they walked into the shimmering light. In an instant, the world dissolved. There was no ground beneath their feet, no air around their bodies. They were floating in a place made of swirling colors, shifting shadows, and infinite echoes of forgotten moments. They saw versions of Earth that never existed, cities of glass, forests of light, oceans floating in the sky. They saw themselves as children, then as adults, then as elderly, and then as beings of pure energy. Time was folding in on itself. Darren whispered, "We're outside everything." They drifted forward. Around them, cracks in reality glowed like fractures in stained glass. Each crack showed a different timeline, some peaceful, some burning, some filled with creatures no human had ever seen. They were no longer bound to the flow of time. They were wanderers. Starborn. A path formed beneath their feet made of shimmering blue crystal. At the end of the path flowed a river, not of water, but of memories. The River of Echoes. The archivist appeared beside them again, though faintly. "To reach the timeless void, you must cross this river." Lyra stepped closer. She saw memories drifting in the current, births, laughter, heartbreak, wars, discoveries. She even saw herself as a baby, glowing faintly under moonlight. "How do we cross it?" she asked. The archivist's voice softened. "By facing what you fear most." One by one, the wanderers approached the river. The water rose and formed visions, personal storms each of them had to walk through. Some faced guilt. Some faced loneliness. Some faced the shapes of futures they feared becoming. Lyra's trial showed her standing alone in a broken world. The others gone. The universe empty. She whispered, "No, I won't be the last. I won't let it end." Her courage solidified beneath her feet, forming a bridge of light. She walked across. One by one, the others crossed too. The wanderers had passed their first trial. But far ahead, past the river, a darkness began to take shape, something vast, watching, waiting. Something hungry. The wanderers continued walking along the crystalline path that stretched endlessly into the shifting horizon. But soon, the path dimmed. The colors in the sky dulled. The air thickened, as if a giant presence pressed against them. Yara suddenly stopped. "Something is near." Her voice trembled. She didn't tremble often. The shadows ahead of them deepened into a swirling cloud. It had no form at first. Then it stretched upward, tall, thin, twisting like smoke. Two hollow, glowing rings formed where eyes should be. Lyra whispered, "What is that?" The creature's voice seeped into their minds like cold wind. "I am the hollow wraith. I am what remains when a timeline dies. I am the silence left behind." The wanderers stood frozen. Their hearts pounded, not from fear alone, but from the unsettling emptiness radiating from the creature. Kale stepped forward. "We're passing through. We don't want to fight." The wraith's hollow eyes flickered. "To pass, you must give me what you carry the least of." Darren frowned. "What does that mean?" The wraith drifted closer. Its voice echoed inside each of them. "Hope, fear, memory, time, choice, doubt." Ellie's whispered, "It wants something abstract." The wraith nodded, or rather, its shape bent slightly. "I feed on what binds you. Choose one to surrender." Silence fell. Giving up fear would make them reckless. Giving up memory would make them strangers to themselves. Giving up choice would turn them into puppets. Giving up hope might doom everything. The wanderers exchanged looks. Lyra finally spoke. "We give you doubt." The wraith hesitated. "Why doubt?" Lyra breathed slowly. "Because doubt holds us back. We will face what's coming without hesitation." The other wanderers nodded quietly. The wraith's hollow body expanded, swirling like a storm. A cold wind rushed through them. Something inside them loosened, like a weight lifting. Their doubts, the quiet whispers of failure, fell away. The wraith shrank. "Then you may pass," And know this, the closer you come to the edge of time, the more of yourselves you will lose.
Its form dissolved into nothing.
The wanderers stepped past the place where it had stood, feeling lighter but also aware that part of them was now gone forever. After hours, or maybe days, time was strange here, they reached a massive structure. It hovered above a glowing void, supported by nothing. A city. But unlike any city they had seen before. Buildings floated like islands. Bridges looped into impossible shapes. Every street twisted slightly, making it hard to tell where one moment ended and another began.
It looks alive, Myra whispered.
As they entered the city, they noticed the people, or what remained of them. Transparent figures walked slowly, their bodies flickering like candle flames. Are they ghosts?
Jorin asked.
No, the archivist's faint voice answered. They are echoes, fragments from timelines that collapsed. They walk eternally, repeating their last living moments. A ghostly woman walked past them, holding a flower that turned to dust and reformed again and again.
Kale swallowed.
This is horrible. It is what awaits all existence if the Devourer reaches your world, the archivist said. The word struck them like thunder.
Devourer.
A name for the thing consuming time. Eris spoke softly, so this is the future if we fail. The archivist replied, one of many. The wanderers continued through the city. The echoes watched them, some with curiosity, some with sadness, and some with empty eyes that held no memories at all. Then they reached the center, a tower made of swirling silver metal. This is the Tower of Last Moments, Lyra said softly. How do you know?
Vale asked.
I don't, Lyra admitted. But something inside me does.
The markings on her arms glowed faintly. The wanderers climbed the tower.
The stairs twisted in ways that made their stomachs turn, sometimes rising, sometimes falling, sometimes folding sideways. At the top was a chamber filled with floating orbs.
Each orb showed a different timeline. A different version of reality.
One showed Earth covered in endless forests of crystal. Another showed oceans boiling under a shattered sky. Another showed a version of themselves, but older, scarred, and broken. What is this?
Elise whispered.
The archivist answered, these are the last moments of countless worlds.
The Devourer destroyed them.
These orbs preserved only their final seconds. A heavy silence fell. Yara pointed to one orb showing a burning universe. How does it destroy reality?
The archivist paused before answering. It does not destroy. It consumes time.
It drains the energy that keeps past, present, and future connected. When that thread breaks, the world collapses into nothing. Lyra asked, where is the Devourer now?
The orbs flickered. Then all but one went dark. The single glowing orb showed a swirling mass of shadows moving across a starless horizon. The archivist's voice lowered.
It is waiting at the edge of time, the final boundary where existence spills into the timeless void. A chill ran through the wanderers. That's where we're going, Kale said. Yes, the archivist replied. But first you must find the time heart. Light gathered in the center of the chamber. A crystal sphere materialized within the swirling silver room. It beat like a living heart, softly, steadily, beautifully. This is the time heart, the archivist said. The core of temporal existence. To stop the Devourer, one of you must carry it into the void.
Carry it? RYN asked.
What happens when someone does?
The archivist hesitated.
The one who carries it will no longer be part of the mortal timeline.
The wanderers exchanged glances. That meant losing their humanity, their past,
their future, themselves.
Lyra stepped closer to the crystal. It pulsed warmly near her. It felt like it recognized her. Why does it respond to me? She whispered.
Because, the archivist said quietly, you were born first among the Starborn. You hold the strongest shard of Chronos light.
Kale moved beside her.
You're not sacrificing yourself alone. Lyra looked at him, grateful but resolute. We'll decide together, Yara said firmly. No one makes this choice alone.
The tower trembled suddenly. The orbs flickered violently. A deep roar echoed outside.
The archivist's form blurred. The Devourer has sensed the time heart. You must leave this city, now. The wanderers didn't hesitate. They grabbed their packs, steadied each other, and began their race out of the tower as the echoes around them froze, shattered, and dissolved. The Devourer was coming. And time was running out. The city trembled beneath the wanderers' feet as they ran.
Buildings of swirling metal began to crack.
Floating streets collapsed into streams of broken light.
The sky above pulsed with the warning glow of a dying timeline.
Myra shouted over the chaos. Where do we go? The outer boundary. Eris answered. We have to escape before the Devourer reaches us. As they ran, shadows seeped across the ground, inky tendrils stretching forward with chilling speed. Every touch of darkness made the structures dissolve, absorbed into nothingness.
Kale looked back.
It's consuming the city.
Darren grabbed his arm.
Don't look, keep moving. The wanderers raced along a bridge that twisted like a ribbon caught in the wind.
The shadows surged behind them.
The entire city screamed, whispers of echoes suddenly turning to cries of fear as their last moments unraveled. Lyra felt her heartbeat sync with the time heart, which floated beside her like a loyal guardian. It pulsed brighter with every step she took. We're almost out.
Kale yelled.
But then the bridge ahead of them split open. A massive fracture tore across the path, stretching down into a swirling abyss of shattered seconds and broken moments. The only way across was a narrow, unstable shard of crystal.
Yara stepped forward without hesitation.
I'll go first.
She raced ahead and balanced herself on the shard.
The others followed quickly, one by one, slipping and stumbling as the abyss below pulled at their bodies with invisible gravity. Vale almost fell, but Ryn grabbed him, pulling him back to safety.
I owe you one, Vale gasped. Ryn smirked.
You owe me 10.
Finally, they reached the solid path again. Behind them, the bridge collapsed into dust.
The city's last tower toppled.
The sky dimmed.
The shadows grew still.
The Devourer was coming.
The wanderers reached the far edge of the city and stepped into a vast open plain of shimmering golden dust. The plain stretched endlessly, like a desert frozen in time. Above them, the sky changed. Instead of swirling colors, it showed scenes, memories of the universe.
Stars forming. Stars dying. Worlds spinning into existence.
Creatures rising and falling through ages. Civilizations breathing life, then fading.
Darren stared upward.
It's like the sky is remembering everything. The memory sky, the archivist said faintly, flickering beside them. Your final path before reaching the edge of time.
Lyra looked around.
Is it safe?
Nothing answered. A strange wind brushed past them.
It carried whispers, not from the present, but from long-dead futures, forgotten pasts, and timelines that never existed.
The wanderers walked through the golden plain cautiously. Myra pointed to the air ahead.
Look, something's forming.
A glowing shape materialized. Then another. And another.
Dozens of figures surrounded them, each made of faint, flickering light. Kale tensed. Echoes.
No, the archivist said.
These are future selves. The wanderers froze. Standing before them were older versions of themselves, some confident, some broken, some twisted by choices they had not yet made.
One older Lyra stepped forward.
Her eyes were weary but wise.
You are close to the edge.
But you must understand something before you go.
Lyra swallowed. What?
The older Lyra reached out and touched her younger self's hand. When you face the Devourer, one of you will not return. No power can save all 12.
Silence dropped over the wanderers like a shroud.
Who?
Kale asked sharply. The older version shook her head.
The future shifts too much.
Even we cannot see clearly.
Yora stepped forward. Then why show yourselves? The older Yora answered. To warn you, the Devourer does not only consume time.
It consumes identity.
If you rely too heavily on your Chronos light, it will tear you apart. Then what do we do?
Elise asked.
The older Darren smiled faintly. Trust each other more than you trust your power. The figures began to fade. Wait.
Lyra called.
Is there no other way? Her older self looked at her one last time. There is always another way, but it comes with its own sacrifice. Then the future selves dissolved. The wanderers stood in the golden dust, shaken. Kale placed a hand on Lyra's shoulder. We'll face it together. All of us. Lyra nodded weakly, though worry shadowed her eyes. They continued until the golden plain ended abruptly at a vast ocean of silver water. The waves moved slowly, almost dreamlike, and each ripple showed faint images. People, places, memories, possibilities. The sea without time.
the archivist said softly.
Your final barrier before the edge. How do we cross it?
Arwayan asked.
The answer came as the water rose and shaped itself into a long crystal bridge.
Kale raised an eyebrow.
Convenient.
No, the archivist corrected. It is reacting to your presence.
Your Chronos light shapes this place.
They stepped onto the bridge.
The moment their feet touched the crystal, the sea stirred. Voices rose from the water, echoes of the past. Lyra heard her mother's voice calling her name. Darren heard the laughter of the siblings he had lost. Eris heard her father's voice warning her about the dangers of the skies. Myra heard music she hadn't listened to since she was a child.
Each voice tempted them to look down.
Kale clenched his jaw. Don't listen. Keep walking. But then the sea changed. The voices shifted, not past memories, but future possibilities. Lyra heard her own voice scream in pain. Kale heard himself calling out desperately for help. Yora heard the sound of a world collapsing. Elise covered her ears.
Make it stop.
The bridge trembled under their feet, cracking slightly.
The archivist spoke urgently. Ignore the visions. They are possibilities, not certainties.
The sea reflects your fears.
The wanderers forced themselves forward.
Halfway across, the sea erupted upward, forming a massive shape. Water turning into limbs, a torso, a head shaped like a storm. A leviathan of time. Its voice boomed like 1,000 crashing waves.
Turn back. You carry the time heart.
The devourer waits.
Fate cannot be changed.
Kale shouted. We're not turning back. The leviathan roared, striking the bridge. Crystals shattered beneath their feet. The wanderers stumbled as pieces of the path fell into the glowing sea. Lyra stepped forward, holding the time heart high. We will not let the universe die.
The leviathan lunged. But the time heart flared with blinding light. The sea froze. The leviathan dissolved into silver mist. The bridge stabilized. And the path forward opened.
They reached the far shore and found themselves standing before a vast wall of swirling darkness and light. It stretched infinitely upward, downward, and sideways, like the curtain of a cosmic stage. The edge of time, the archivist whispered. Lyra felt the time heart throb in her hands. Eris stepped closer to the wall.
It looks alive.
It is, the archivist replied. Beyond this boundary exists the timeless void, the place where the devourer waits. The wanderers exchanged frightened but determined glances.
Vale exhaled slowly.
So this is where the real fight begins.
Lyra stepped forward.
And where time ends.
The edge pulsed. The darkness shifted.
A low, rumbling growl echoed from the other side.
The devourer knew they were there.
And it was waiting. The edge of time shifted like a living curtain, growing thinner and more translucent as the wanderers approached. The closer they came, the more they felt their bodies lighten, as if time itself were releasing its grip on them. Lyra placed a hand on the swirling boundary. It felt cold, so cold it burned. The time heart in her other hand pulsed rapidly, reacting to the barrier.
Kale stood beside her.
Ready?
No, Lyra admitted honestly.
But we're going anyway. Together, the 12 Starborn stepped into the wall.
Light exploded. Silence roared. Everything became nothing. And then, something.
They found themselves standing on an endless plain of glowing mist. There was no sky, no ground, only shifting vapors and distant pulses of energy. Their bodies flickered, half-transparent, like they existed only partially here. This place, Eris whispered. It doesn't feel real. It isn't, the archivist said, appearing faintly. This is the timeless void, the space between all realities. Here, the laws of existence flicker like dying candles.
Yara frowned.
Then where's the devourer? The archivist pointed toward the horizon, if a horizon could be said to exist here. A massive, swirling storm of darkness pulsed in the far distance.
There. The storm shifted. It had seen them. The wanderers approached the swirling shadow storm.
The closer they came, the larger it grew, so vast it felt as though it filled the whole void.
Then it began to take shape.
Arms stretched outward like tendrils of smoke.
A torso rose from the darkness.
A head formed, a hollow, twisting vortex with no face, only a gaping void that pulled at the air around it.
The devourer stood before them. Not a creature. Not a machine. Not a god. A wound in existence. A tear where time had collapsed into pure hunger. Its voice trembled through the void.
Starborn,
You carry what was stolen from me. Kale muttered. Stolen?
The time heart belongs to the universe. The Devourer's voice rumbled like collapsing galaxies.
Time belongs to nothing. I am the final truth. All things end. All things return to me.
Lyra stepped forward, gripping the time heart tightly. We won't let you consume everything. The Devourer shifted its vast, swirling arms.
You cannot stop what has already begun. Your world trembles. Your futures die. You are too late. Yora's eyes narrowed.
We'll see about that. The Devourer stretched outward, and the void shook.
The Devourer struck.
A wave of shadows surged forward, swallowing the ground. The Wanderers scattered as the shockwave rippled through the mist. Kale thrust his hands forward, summoning a burst of blue Chronos light that cut through the wave. The energy exploded, slowing the shadow long enough for him to dodge aside. Darren leaped into action, creating shields of glowing silver to protect the others. The shields flickered under the Devourer's force but held. Myra and Elise combined their light, forming a beam that pushed back the darkness, carving temporary space around them. Ryn sprinted across the shifting ground, leaving a trail of golden sparks that dissolved the shadows trying to crawl upward from below. But every time they pushed the Devourer back, the shadows reformed. It's endless.
Vale shouted.
No, Eris corrected breathlessly. It's consuming time itself to regenerate.
Lyra raised the time heart.
It pulsed, sending waves of energy outward, but the Devourer absorbed them like rain vanishing into sand. It's feeding on it, Lyra whispered in horror.
The Devourer's voice growled. The heart must return to the void.
Give it to me, and your suffering ends.
Not happening, Kale snapped.
The Devourer's massive form shifted again. Darkness exploded outward like a star collapsing.
The Wanderers were thrown back.
As they staggered to their feet, Vale gasped. Guys, look.
His hands were fading.
Not disappearing, unraveling. His fingers dissolved into tiny threads of light that drifted away like dust. No, Vale whispered. Time, it's pulling me apart. The Archivist flickered into view. This is the void's nature.
The longer you remain, the more you lose yourselves.
The Devourer drains identity. Elise cried out as her reflection in the mist twisted into a distorted, older version of herself.
Myra's shadow vanished entirely.
Solon's memories flashed before his eyes at once, overwhelming him. Lyra felt her heartbeat sinking with the time heart, faster, louder, stronger.
Too strong. It's getting worse, she cried. The void trembled as the Devourer advanced. You cannot win. You cannot stay. You cannot exist here.
But the Wanderers stood together, refusing to yield. Kale placed a hand on Lyra's shoulder. We need a plan.
Lyra swallowed. We push it back.
And I use the time heart to seal it away.
Eris shook her head.
That'll destroy you.
Lyra didn't answer. Her silence said enough.
Kale stepped in front of her.
No.
There has to be another way. The Devourer roared, its vortex mouth bending the air.
There is only me.
The Archivist raised its fading arm. There is one thing you do not yet understand. The Wanderers turned toward it, desperate for answers.
You were not born randomly. You were created.
Formed by the universe itself when the last dawn rose.
Darren stared.
Created?
By who?
The universe, the Archivist repeated. In its final attempt to survive, it infused newborn lives with fragments of pure Chronos light. Each of you holds a different aspect of time, memory, fate, potential, possibility, growth, decay, and more.
The Wanderers all felt their markings pulse.
But only one of you carries the core, the Archivist said. The first light. Its faded finger pointed at Lyra. She stepped back, eyes wide.
Me?
Yes, the Archivist said.
You hold the strongest shard.
You were born for one purpose, to carry the time heart into the void and restore balance.
No, Kale said firmly.
She's not sacrificing herself.
The Archivist's voice softened.
A sacrifice is not always the end of existence. But it is always the end of what you once were. Lyra felt fear grip her, but also a strange clarity.
She understood now. She had always understood.
The Devourer raised an enormous arm of shadow and hurled it toward them. The Wanderers tried to scatter, but the blow landed like a collapsing universe. The ground shattered. The Wanderers were thrown like broken stars across the void. Lyra tumbled, barely holding onto the time heart.
The Devourer's vortex-like mouth opened directly above her. "Give it to me," it growled. "You were never meant to wield it."
Kale sprinted toward her, screaming her name, but he was too far.
The Devourer lunged. Its shadows wrapped around Lyra. The time heart flared with white-hot light.
"No!"
Lyra shouted. The blast ripped across the void. Shadows evaporated. The Devourer recoiled in agony. The Wanderers crawled toward her as the Devourer roared.
"You okay?"
Yara asked breathlessly. Lyra nodded weakly. "We need to end this. Now."
The Devourer gathered itself, preparing for a devastating strike. The Wanderers stood together, battered but unbroken.
The final confrontation had arrived. Lyra looked at Kale. The fear in her eyes had changed. It wasn't fear of the Devourer now. It was fear of the choice she had to make. Kale's voice cracked.
"Don't do this alone."
"I won't," she whispered.
"But I have to be the one to carry the heart."
Elise shook her head.
"You'll disappear."
"Maybe not," Lyra said quietly.
"Maybe I'll just become something else." The Devourer surged forward with an earth-shattering roar.
There was no more time. Lyra lifted the time heart. It burst into brilliant, unstoppable light. The Wanderers charged with her, 12 lights against the darkness. The Devourer unleashed its full power. Light and shadow collided in a storm that shook the timeless void apart. The universe held its breath. The end, and the beginning, was moments away. The Wanderers traveled deeper into the prism corridor, a region of space where light behaved strangely. Rays bent into spirals, colors reversed themselves, and shadows seemed to move ahead of their sources. The further they went, the more the universe felt like a place rearranging its own rules. Even the Vigilant Star's instruments began to glitch, not because of malfunction, but because reality itself was inconsistent. Nova stood at the observation window, watching beams of purple-gold light weave around the ship. "It's beautiful," she whispered, "but it also feels like we shouldn't be here." Aura nodded.
"Spaces like this were never meant for linear beings. Time folds in ways our minds struggle to understand."
Syra was already studying the patterns in the light.
"These distortions, they are not random. They are signals. Someone, or something, is trying to communicate."
Kale frowned.
"Another message from the Star Makers."
Syra shook her head. "No. This is different. More chaotic.
Less intentional." The prism corridor ended abruptly, opening into a region unlike anything they had seen. A vast cosmic tear stretching across infinity, glowing like a wound in the universe. It pulsed with strange colors, blues that hummed, reds that vibrated, and greens that flickered like flares. Orin spoke softly, awed and uneasy. "That is the rift of fractured eternities."
Nova felt her voice tremble.
Is it a doorway?"
"It is many things," Orin answered. "A tear, a bridge, a mirror.
It connects timelines that never should have touched." The moment they approached, their ship was pulled in by a gentle but unavoidable force. Instruments flickered. Lights dimmed. Space seemed to twist as if the Vigilant Star was being folded like paper.
Kale gripped the controls.
"We're losing stability."
"Hold the course," Orin instructed.
"The rift will not destroy us if we enter willingly."
As they crossed the threshold, everything stopped. Not time. Not motion.
Everything.
The concept of existence paused. Nova felt her mind float outside her body.
She saw Kale, Syra, Orin, yet also saw infinite versions of them. Versions laughing, fighting, aging, disappearing. She saw herself as a child, as an old woman, as a cosmic being made entirely of light. She saw the universe forming, collapsing, and being reborn. It was overwhelming, but not painful. A voice echoed through the frozen moment, not spoken but perceived. "You who are Starborn, you who seek the edge, know the cost of passing." Images flashed faster. A universe burning in silence. Worlds splitting in two. Beings of light rising and falling. A cosmic war fought across timelines. And the Wanderers standing in the center of it all. Then the voice whispered, echoing both inside and outside reality. "The path ahead will unmake what you are, or reveal what you were meant to become." The world snapped back into motion. Nova gasped, clutching the railing. What was that?"
Orin steadied her. "The rift shows possibilities. Futures.
Warnings." Kale trembled slightly, though he tried to hide it. "Did you all see everything?"
Syra nodded slowly.
Every version of us. Past, present, future. Even those that will never exist. The ship continued drifting deeper into the rift, although deeper was not the right word. There was no direction here. Only layers of time overlapping like pages in a book thrown into the wind. The wanderers watched as fragments of alternate realities flickered around them.
One vision showed a world where humans lived among living stars. Another showed Earth abandoned long ago.
Another showed no humans ever existing at all.
Nova pressed her hand to the glass. Are these possibilities? Or failures?
Orin answered gently. They are paths. Some taken, some avoided. As they traveled further, they encountered a shimmering sphere floating in the rift, shifting form every second. Sometimes it looked like a planet, sometimes a star, sometimes a swirling storm of memories. What is that?
Kale asked. Orin's voice was low.
A nexus seed. It binds fractured timelines and prevents them from collapsing into each other.
The seed pulsed.
With each pulse, the wanderers felt echoes of distant lives.
Friends they never met. Battles they never fought. Loves they never knew. Syra stepped closer.
It's alive, in a way. It contains the memory of countless universes. The seed suddenly projected beams around the ship, not as a threat but as an invitation.
Orin understood.
It wants us to absorb its knowledge.
Kale raised an eyebrow. Absorb? As in, put it in our minds. Orin nodded. A small part of it.
Enough to understand what lies ahead.
Nova hesitated.
Will it hurt us?
No, Orin said.
But it will change how we understand time. The wanderers placed their hands on the glowing surface of the seed. Light burst around them, filling their thoughts with waves of information. Timelines diverging like rivers. Civilizations rising and collapsing across centuries at once. Alien species evolving in spirals of probability. A cosmic structure beyond the universe, a massive, ancient barrier. And one phrase repeated itself across every timeline. The Starborn must return before the final unraveling.
Nova staggered back. Unraveling? What does that mean?
Orin's expression darkened.
Something is destabilizing the multiverse. Threads of time are weakening.
If it continues, reality will collapse into entropy.
Kale looked out at the swirling timelines. And we're supposed to stop it.
Syra shook her head slowly.
No.
We're supposed to understand why it's happening. The seed faded into silence, its duty fulfilled. The ship drifted toward the deepest layer of the rift, where a colossal silhouette emerged, an ancient, broken structure larger than galaxies.
A city. A graveyard. A machine. All three at once.
Nova whispered in awe and dread. What is that place?
Orin answered quietly.
It is the remains of the first timekeepers, the beings who once shaped the flow of time. And if they have fallen, then we are truly heading beyond the edge of everything. The wanderers prepared themselves as the vigilant star entered the ruins.
Because whatever answers waited inside
would change the fate of time itself. The ruins stretched across the rift like the bones of a forgotten titan. Towers made of pale, crystalline metal floated in fragments.
Bridges twisted like spirals.
Giant rings rotated slowly without any visible source of power. The whole structure looked ancient, broken, and yet somehow still alive. It hummed softly, like a memory refusing to fade. The vigilant star descended between two shattered towers. As they approached, the ship's senses struggled to interpret the materials. The ruins were made from something older than matter itself, substance formed before the universe settled into rules.
Nova stared out the window.
I've never seen anything like this.
Orin's voice was almost reverent.
These are the remains of the first timekeepers. The ones who shaped the original flow of time. They existed before the universe became stable.
Kale frowned.
So they were like gods.
Not gods, Orin said. But powerful. Wise. Capable of weaving entire timelines.
But even they could fall. Syra stepped forward, eyes wide with curiosity. Why did they fall?
Orin's silence answered more than words could.
The ship landed on a floating platform. The surface glowed faintly beneath their feet as they stepped out. A soft pulse ran across the platform and into the ruins, like it was aware of their presence.
Kale placed his hand on the wall of a broken tower.
It feels warm, like it remembers something.
Syra nodded.
Memory is woven into its structure. This entire city is made of temporal crystal. It stores moments, not information.
Nova breathed slowly.
Then these ruins, they are a record of time itself. As they walked deeper, ghostly images flickered around them, echoes of the past. Tall, luminous beings glided through the corridors, their bodies flowing like rivers of starlight. They spoke in harmonies, their thoughts weaving through the air as shining threads. The wanderers watched these ancient forms work at massive consoles that controlled the flow of time.
Then the images shattered.
The timekeepers were suddenly in chaos. Beams of energy ripped through the halls. Chronostorms, swirls of unstable time, tore apart structures and beings alike. The city trembled. The harmonies became screams. Then the vision faded. Nova stood frozen. Something destroyed them. But what? Orin answered quietly. Something that even they could not control.
Kale swallowed hard.
And that something is causing the unraveling now.
That is what we must discover, Orin replied. They walked into a central chamber.
At its heart stood a massive sphere of fractured crystal suspended in midair. Pieces floated and rotated around it, forming patterns that shifted every second. The sphere radiated faint pulses of energy. Syra whispered, "This is a chrono core, the heart of the Timekeeper city."
Nova approached carefully.
"Can it still function?"
"Barely," Orin said.
"But it might still show us what happened." The core responded to their presence. Light spiraled outward from it, covering the walls with ancient symbols. The symbols rearranged themselves into images. The wanderers watched as the chrono core revealed the final days of the Timekeepers. The Timekeepers had sensed anomalies, ripples across timelines, distortions forming at the edges of existence. They traced them to a single source, a point beyond the universe's boundary. Something outside spacetime was sending destructive waves inward. The images shifted. The Timekeepers attempted to seal the boundary, weaving massive temporal barriers.
But the waves grew stronger. Time fractured. The barriers crumbled.
Reality bent under pressure. Then a shadow appeared in the vision, vast, dark, formless. It had no shape, no body, no face, only an outline of something that should not exist. It pressed against the universe like a hand trying to break through a fragile window.
And then the vision ended. Kale took a shaky breath.
What was that thing?
Orin's expression was grim. Something outside our universe. Something ancient.
Something that does not belong to any timeline.
Nova felt a cold chill.
Then the unraveling, is it that thing trying to enter?
Syra studied the fading symbols. The Timekeepers tried to stop it. They failed. Their city fell.
Their civilization disappeared.
Kale looked around at the ruins.
And now it's our turn to face the same threat.
Orin placed a hand on the chrono core. Not to fight it. To understand it.
Only knowledge can save us now. Suddenly, the city trembled. Cracks formed in the air, a sign of unstable time. Echoes of events from different eras began overlapping. Nova gasped as she saw herself standing in two places at once. Kale saw his past self run across the chamber. Syra saw a version of her that had silver hair and glowing eyes.
Orin reacted instantly.
The city is collapsing into temporal instability. We must move quickly. They ran through the shaking halls as the ruins flickered between past and future. Structures rebuilt themselves only to crumble again. Ghostly figures of the Timekeepers appeared and vanished. When they reached the exit platform, a massive ripple tore through the city. A chunk of a tower dissolved into dust, then reformed, then shattered again. Kale shouted, "The rift is destabilizing around the ruins."
Syra tapped rapidly on her wrist device. "The collapse is accelerating.
If we don't leave now, this entire region of the rift could fall into a temporal vortex."
They boarded the Vigilant Star as more distortions ripped through the air.
Orin guided the ship away from the collapsing structures. But just as they were about to escape, a beam of light shot out from the ruins and struck the ship. Nova screamed, "What is that?" Orin examined the readings, his expression turning from confusion to shock.
"It's not an attack.
It's a transfer." The ship trembled as something entered its core systems, a stream of ancient data, memories, and energy.
Syra widened her eyes.
"It's the final message of the Timekeepers." Kale braced himself. "What does it say?" Orin closed his eyes, listening to the data as it resonated through the ship. Then he spoke words that sent a chill through everyone's heart. The Starborn wanderers were foretold. "You are the ones who must cross the boundary beyond existence. For the being outside the universe is waking." The ruins vanished behind them, collapsing into a storm of fractured time.
And the wanderers set course toward the final unknown. The place where the universe ends.
And something greater begins. The vigilant star moved into a region of space where even the laws of physics seemed uncertain. Stars stretched like paint across a canvas, forming long trails of glowing dust. Planets appeared and vanished, flickering as if they were unsure whether they should exist. Time felt thinner, like a fabric stretched too tightly. Nova stood by the observation window, feeling a quiet fear settle in her chest.
It's getting worse.
The unraveling, it's spreading. Saga confirmed it with a trembling voice.
Time distortions are growing.
We're seeing 12 different realities overlap in the same coordinates. If this continues, entire timelines will collapse.
Kale clenched his jaw.
And we're heading straight toward the cause of it.
Orin nodded calmly. The boundary beyond existence. The outermost edge of our universe.
This is where the timekeepers built their final anchor.
Nova turned toward him.
What exactly is waiting for us there?
Orin hesitated, not because he didn't know, but because the truth was terrifying.
The awakening presence, he said softly. The one outside the universe. The wanderers said nothing more as the ship approached a strange, glowing barrier that stretched across the cosmos like a shimmering curtain. It rippled with colors that didn't exist in any known spectrum. Colors that looked like memories, emotions, forgotten dreams. Kale whispered, "Is that the edge of reality?"
Orin answered, "Yes.
And beyond it lies the outside, a realm with no time, no space, no identity."
The ship slowed as the barrier pulsed. The pulses grew stronger, like a heartbeat. Nova stepped forward.
"Is that coming from the being outside?"
"Not yet," Orin said. "This is the anchor field.
It keeps the outside forces from touching the universe."
Saga checked her console. "But the field is weakening. If it collapses..."
Kale finished the sentence. "The outside will pour in."
A sudden tremor ran through the ship. The barrier flickered.
A crack of pure darkness split across the glowing surface, thin at first, then widening, stretching like a mouth.
Nova gasped.
"It's opening." Orin stared at the growing fracture.
"No, it is not opening.
It is being forced open from the other side." A massive surge of energy burst from the crack, sending the ship spinning.
Kale fought to stabilize it as alarms blared.
Saga shouted, "Temporal density is dropping. Time is collapsing around the breach."
Orin called out, "Hold course.
We must reach the anchor point." The ship pushed forward as the barrier tore open. The crack expanded into a colossal rift, forming an enormous dark circle, a void so black it absorbed light itself.
Shapes moved inside it.
Not solid forms, but shifting patterns, like a storm of shadows trying to take shape.
Nova felt a chill crawl up her spine.
"It's watching us." One shape grew larger, rising from the void like a wave. It had no face, no body, but its presence felt overwhelming, huge, ancient, hungry. Kale whispered, "That thing, that's the presence."
Orin nodded slowly.
That is what the timekeepers feared. The being pressed against the breach, and reality bent outward like thin metal under pressure.
Space warped.
Time shook. Stars twisted into spirals around the growing rift.
Saga stared in horror.
"It's trying to enter our universe." Before any of them could react, a blast of light shot from somewhere deep within the barrier. It hit the being, slowing its advance. The wanderers turned and saw a structure ahead, a shining tower floating in the void, connected to the barrier by chains of pure energy. Nova breathed. "Is that the anchor point?"
"Yes," Orin said.
"The timekeeper's final defense."
They steered toward it.
The tower was immense, shaped like a spear piercing into the barrier. Symbols of ancient civilizations glowed across its surface. As the wanderers approached, the tower began projecting beams of light toward the breach, trying to hold back the entity.
But it was failing. Cracks spread across the tower.
The chains of energy snapped one by one. The beams flickered. Kale shouted, "The anchor point won't hold." "Then we must strengthen it," Orin said. "The timekeepers left us their final message for a reason."
Saga realized what he meant.
The data from the ruin, it said we were meant to cross the boundary.
"Yes," Orin said.
"Because the anchor point can only be fully activated from both sides, inside the universe, and from beyond it."
Nova's eyes widened.
"You mean, one of us has to go into the outside?"
Orin nodded solemnly. Yes.
Only by entering the outside can the anchor be stabilized.
Kale shook his head. But that place has no time. No form. Nothing can survive out there.
Orin turned toward him. The Starborn wanderers are not ordinary travelers.
The ship trembled again. The breach widened. The entity surged forward.
Its presence pressed into the boundary, twisting the space around the ship. Whisper-like echoes filled the air, voices that came from nowhere and everywhere at once. Syra clutched her ears. I can hear it. It's not speaking, it's pulling.
Pulling reality apart. Orin placed a hand on her shoulder. We must move now. He led them into the heart of the anchor point.
The interior was filled with swirling orbs of energy, moments, memories, futures, pasts, all rotating around a central beam of pure temporal light. Nova whispered, "What do we have to do?"
Orin pointed to the beam.
One wanderer must enter the beam.
It will open a path to the outside.
Only there can the anchor point be reconnected. Kale shook his head fiercely. We'd never get them back.
Orin lowered his eyes. You may.
If they resist the outside long enough.
Nova stepped forward immediately.
I'll go.
Kale grabbed her arm. No.
Absolutely not. Syra looked between them, trembling. There must be another way.
But Orin shook his head.
There's no other way. The outside is already touching our universe. Someone must cross.
The tower groaned. Metal cracked.
The beam flickered. The wanderers stood together, facing the impossible. Nova's voice was soft but steady. We didn't come this far to watch the universe collapse.
If someone has to go, it should be me.
Kale took a shaky breath, fighting emotions he couldn't hide. I won't let you do this alone.
Syra wiped her eyes.
We all choose together. That's what wanderers do. Orin looked at them with surprising warmth.
Then choose quickly.
Time, every timeline, is running out. The light grew brighter. The breach grew wider. The being outside the universe pushed harder.
And the wanderers made their decision. Stepping toward the beam. That would carry one of them.
Beyond existence itself, the beam of temporal light pulsed like a living heartbeat. It reached upward into the collapsing sky, splitting the anchor point tower in two with its brilliance. The wanderers stood before it, each one knowing that after this moment, nothing would ever be the same again. Nova stepped closer to the beam, feeling its pull. It wasn't like gravity, it was more like a memory trying to reclaim her.
Images of her childhood flickered in the light.
Voices of loved ones long gone whispered her name. Each memory carried warmth, but also a strange sorrow. Nova, Kale said, his voice cracking slightly. You don't have to be the one. She turned to him, her smile soft and brave. Kale, from the first day we left our stars behind, you said we were wanderers because we go where others cannot.
This is where I have to go.
He looked away, jaw tight, unable to argue because she was right.
Syra stepped forward.
Tears shimmered in her eyes, but her voice was steady. If you're going, then we'll anchor you from here. You won't face the outside alone.
Orin placed a hand on Nova's shoulder. Remember, do not fight the outside. Let it flow around you. Let yourself become weightless.
Only then can you reach the farthest point. Nova nodded, taking a deep breath. I understand.
A violent tremor shook the structure. Metal cracked.
Light fractured. Outside the tower, the breach expanded into a vast black wound. The huge, formless presence pushed harder, its shadowy limbs reaching into the universe.
Stars warped and vanished around it.
Kale shouted, We're out of time. Nova turned back to the beam. No more hesitation.
She stepped in.
The moment her body touched the light, she dissolved, not painfully, but gently, like mist blown apart by wind. Kale reached out instinctively, but his hand passed through her as she floated upward, turning into glowing fragments.
Nova's voice echoed faintly.
I'm okay.
I feel light.
And then she vanished into the beam.
Nova enters the outside. Everything became silent.
Nova opened her eyes, if she still had eyes.
She wasn't sure.
She existed, but not in a body. She was a thought, a memory, a drifting echo. The darkness around her wasn't empty, it was full of shifting ripples, like waves made of emotions and possibilities.
There was no up or down.
No distance.
No time.
She wasn't floating because floating required gravity.
She wasn't walking because walking required direction. She simply was.
Nova whispered, or thought, and her voice spread in every direction. Where am I? The outside answered not with words, but with sensations.
She felt the birth of a star,
The collapse of a galaxy, the trembling of a timeline breaking, the cry of a civilization that never existed, the laughter of a world that had not yet formed. Every possibility touched her at once.
That was when she sensed it.
The presence. The vast being that had pressed against the universe. Not evil, not cruel, simply immense.
A creature of the outside. It sensed Nova as she sensed it. A ripple passed between them.
It viewed her with curiosity.
She felt a question pour into her mind without sound. Why does a small light enter the dark? Nova gathered her thoughts and answered with calm courage. To save my universe.
The presence rippled again, like a distant thunderclap. Your universe calls to me. It pulls. I answer.
Nova realized something important.
You're not trying to destroy us. You're following a pull?
Yes.
The universe opens. I step through. She understood then what the timekeepers had failed to see. The presence wasn't invading. It was simply moving toward an opening, like water flowing through a crack. Our universe isn't being attacked, Nova said softly. It's breaking apart on its own. The presence pulsed.
It is thinning. I move where the boundary weakens.
I am not hunger. I am gravity. Nova remembered the anchor point, the glowing chains, the beams of light. The boundary is failing because it's old. The timekeepers built it billions of years ago. And it's falling apart. The presence rippled with acknowledgement.
Restore the boundary. I shall remain outside. Nova concentrated. But how?
I'm only one wanderer. The presence extended a wave of shimmering darkness toward her, not harming, but offering. Take the outside's energy.
Carry it back. Complete the anchor.
A small sphere of glowing black light drifted toward her, a piece of the outside, condensed into a stable form.
Nova reached out, although she no longer had hands.
The sphere merged into her essence. Immediately, she felt both powerful and fragile.
She carried something impossible.
The presence drifted back, its form fading.
Go, small light.
Close the breach. Nova focused on the thought of returning, of her friends, of the universe that needed her.
Light enveloped her. She was pulled upward. And shot back toward the anchor point like a comet. Return to the anchor point.
Kale, Syra, and Orin stood around the beam as alarms screamed.
The tower shook violently. The breach was nearly fully open. Kale yelled.
It's going to collapse. Nova, where are you?
Then the beam exploded with brilliant light.
A figure descended slowly, forming from swirling particles. Nova fell into Kale's arms, breathless but alive. Her eyes glowed with faint cosmic energy.
Syra gasped.
Nova, you came back.
Orin's eyes widened.
She carries the outside within her.
Nova nodded weakly.
I have the energy we need to repair the boundary.
Kale helped her stand.
Just tell us what to do. Nova touched the central console of the anchor point, and the outside energy flowed from her hands in streams of dark light mixed with starlight. The tower absorbed it, shuddered,
and came alive.
Chains of pure energy reformed, glowing brighter than before. The beams aimed toward the breach sharpened into spears of temporal power. The entire structure pulsed with strength it had not held since the first timekeepers existed.
Nova shouted, now.
Activate the anchor.
Kale slammed the main control. Syra stabilized the sequence.
Orin merged timelines into alignment. The anchor point unleashed a blast of brilliant light across the barrier. The breach trembled, resisting at first,
then began to close.
The dark presence drifted back peacefully, no longer trying to cross. Nova whispered, exhausted, we did it. The breach sealed with a final flash of cosmic fire.
Silence returned.
The universe stabilized. The anchor point glowed gently, restored. The Wanderer's legacy.
The vigilant star floated near the restored barrier.
Time became steady again.
The distortions faded. Stars regained their shapes. The universe breathed normally. Syra exhaled in relief.
It's over. The unraveling has stopped. Kale smiled at Nova, eyes full of gratitude and something deeper.
You crossed the outside and came back. I still can't believe it.
Nova looked at her glowing hands, then at her friends. I didn't do it alone. The outside wasn't what we feared.
It just needed us to understand. Orin nodded.
Many civilizations mistake the unknown for danger. You saw the truth.
Nova looked into the star-filled void.
We aren't just wanderers anymore. We're guardians of the boundary.
Kale crossed his arms confidently.
So what now?
Syra smiled. Now?
We go further.
Nova laughed softly.
Beyond the edge of time, there's always more. Orin whispered like a prophecy. The Starborn wanderers continue their journey. The vigilant star turned away from the boundary, its engines glowing bright. It soared into the vast unknown, leaving behind the restored barrier, the sealed breach, and the eternal outside.
But the universe would remember them.